Afghanistan of the largest non-nuclear bomb that the U.S. has ever used in combat. I want to bring in Congressman Lee Zeldin. He is a Republican from New York. He's a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and he's also an Iraq War veteran. And I want to bring in Congressman John Garamendi. He's a California Democrat. He is a member of the Armed Services Committee. So, Congressman Zeldin, when you look at this, are you seeing just one data point of a larger picture? Is this part of a reassessment of U.S. military strategy? What do you think?
I would say it's several data points. As you look at Syria, Afghanistan, North Korea, the meeting with China, Russia, all across the map, those countries and others, a few different principles are showing its way. One is a little bit more strength with regards to America's foreign policy. We use a principle called DIME in our government and our military. It's diplomacy, information, military, and economics. We have these different countries who over the course of the past few years have been testing us and watching each other test us. So we're seeing a little bit of that, and as well as additional flexibility given to our military to be able to carry out the missions that they believe they need to do with the resources and personnel they need in order to win.
Congressman Garamendi, do you think this was the right move, dropping this very large bomb? It did kill a couple dozen ISIS fighters, we were told, destroyed 3 tunnels that were being used to move material. Was this the right thing to do?
Well, there's no doubt that we have a very, very powerful military. We have. It was been built up over the last dozen years or more, and it showed its strength in all of these places, certainly in Syria, Afghanistan, and off the coast of Korea. But we have to also be smart. Whether this bomb is a smart thing to do will be seen in the days ahead. We just don't know right now. But we do know that the smart power has been degraded. And that is something that we've got to pay attention to, and I'm sure Mr. Zeldin and I would agree that the 2001 authorization to use force in Afghanistan is now 16 years old, and a lot of things has transpired. And so together with another Republican, Walter Jones, he and I have introduced a resolution that would force the Congress of the United States to insert itself into the issue of war and peace in Afghanistan and also in Syria, where that same authorization to use force, the 2001, is being used as the legal justification for the action against ISIS in Syria. So we need to look at all of these things.
What is Congress's role? It has been left out of the loop on so much of this for years and years, as Congressman Garamendi points out.
Well, a few things. I mean, Congress has an oversight function. I serve on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. We have the House Armed Services Committee, the Appropriations Committee, where funding is provided for our military and for the resources they need. So from an oversight standpoint and appropriations and legislative standpoint, Congress has been involved. When President Obama sent the authorization for the use of military force towards the end of his second term, it did result in an interesting debate in the media, the American public, and amongst members of Congress because it was attempting to actually limit and actually provide additional restrictions on some of his powers. So now you have a new president, a new administration, and as far as a vision going forward of the use of special operations... Which he did at a time when there was certainly a war weariness among the American public, and he was trying to do that as a reassurance for what the limited military operation would be. Now, Congress decided not to get involved in that. So how do you see their role now? Well,
that's the point. That is, in fact, the problem. Under the Constitution, Congress has the authority, and the only authority to wage war. The issue in Syria back in 2013, and the President Obama at the time, I think, correctly said he did not have the power to wage war against the Syrian government. He asked Congress for that power. Now, this recent issue of the Tomahawk missiles, the President cloaked all of that in the War Powers Act, where he specifically said that this was that the chemical weapons were a threat to the United States. That's a bit of a stretch, but let's let that go. Nonetheless,
well, but, you know, Congressman Garamendi, we've seen a number of military actions where Congress has not inserted itself under the Obama administration as well. I mean,
that's correct.
And you said that you said the president can't wage war without Congress's input. Well, reality would challenge that.
That's correct, and that's the problem. Now, what we need to do, we do have a new president. We have a new president that told his very first days in office the military to develop a plan to wipe ISIS off the face of the earth. Well, what is that plan? Where will we be fighting? And what will be needed to carry out those fights? That is critical information that must be given to Congress so that we can decide whether we want to pursue it or not, just as Mr. Zeldin said a moment ago. We do have the authorization. We do have the appropriations authority. But in what context? This is a new presidency. This is a new administration. What is their plan? And what we've seen on the media thus far is multiple plans on any given subject. We've seen 4 different viewpoints on North Korea. We've seen 4 different viewpoints on Syria from the administration itself. So what is the plan?
I do want to get Congressman Zeldin. I want to get Congressman Zeldin in there.
Sure.
Yeah, and John has he has some great insight there, and what we've seen over the course of the last few days is an execution of a new administration's policy. I was in Afghanistan not too long ago, met with General Nicholson, met with both diplomatic and military leadership, and in Afghanistan, where you have in the past, when General Nicholson and others would be meeting with President Obama, he was being asked, what do you need in order to not lose? A low risk, medium risk, high risk. How do we increase our chances of not losing? And as we're going into a new administration, what we need is a shift in strategy where we are telling General Nicholson, our CENTCOM commanders, Secretary Mattis, what do you need in order to win? And this is just the first few weeks of a new administration, but as we see in Syria, a limited targeting of infrastructure, not people, in response to a clear red line being crossed, I think was an appropriate use of force on the part of this president. The use of the Moab in Afghanistan, which is cutting off access to tunnels and caves for ISIS fighters, is an important execution on that front, and we should be having that debate in Congress and working with the administration, because the key is that we need to win, and we don't want to have a political partisan fight.
What does the win look like, Congressman Zeldin? I mean, when you're talking about Syria or, let's say, Afghanistan, what does a win look like?
In Afghanistan, you have a president in Ghani who won an election, Mohammed. It was appointed, signed off on as the chief executive. They are going through an issue with their vice president, and a criminal investigation is taking place. So it's the stability politically of the Afghan government. Secondly, it's the training of Afghan forces to be able to gain control over additional territory over their country. Right now, they have a little bit less control over geographic territory than what we would like to see. Thirdly, is you have a number of terrorist groups operating in Afghanistan where the Afghan government is trying to bring in some of these individuals and some of these groups into their government. In some extent, that means defeating some of the terrorist threats, and with other terrorist groups, they're actually negotiating where possible to try to bring them into the fold. A win in Afghanistan is one where the government becomes more stable, they're able to control more of their land, and they are able to defeat those terrorists that are operating within their own government. That is a lot closer to what a win looks like than where we have been over the course of the last few years. I'm trying to feel it out as far as where the direction goes. I believe there is a clear victory in sight. It's not easy, but I think we know what a win looks like.
I'm going to have to leave it there. It is a very complicated question. I do realize that I was posing there. Congressman Garamendi, we'll have you on again soon. We'll talk more about it. Congressman Lee Zeldin, thank you so much to both of you. Now, the White House